Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, so we are going to dive straight into a truly mind-bending theory from Dr. Ibrahim Karim. We're unpacking a concept known as biogeometry. Basically, it's this fascinating bridge between ancient architectural wisdom and what Dr. Karim calls the physics of quality. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. We're kicking things off with a pretty provocative question. Can ancient geometric shapes actually cure the stress of our modern lives? I know. It sounds a bit like science fiction, right? But as you'll see, the research and real-world applications we're about to explore suggest something wild. The specific shapes and proportions used by our ancestors might literally hold the key to surviving our own technological advancements. Just think about the modern conveniences we interact with every single day. I'm talking about our smart cities, our high-tech electric cars like Teslas. We love them, obviously, but there's a catch. They produce massive amounts of invisible environmental stress, like electromagnetic radiation. Dr. Karim argues that this is happening because our modern technology has completely disconnected itself from a natural life force.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer to help us navigate this whole new paradigm. We'll start with the invisible harm in modern life, look at ancient wisdom and power spots, dive into the science of biogeometry, explore shapes that heal, and finally, we'll break down the miracle of Hamburg. All right, let's jump right into section 1, invisible harm in modern life, and the unseen pollution of our tech. So according to Dr. Karim, because modern science excluded this concept of life force from its formulas, our advanced technologies are fundamentally disconnected from nature. We're effectively sitting inside what he calls electromagnetic cookers. Just think about being inside an electric car, or even sleeping right next to your Wi-Fi router. Over the last century, modern physics essentially removed the concept of the ether, that invisible energy connecting everything in the universe. And because of that, we're now generating energies that fundamentally clash with our own biology. This is leading to some serious, invisible environmental harm and chronic health issues. Which brings us to section 2, ancient wisdom and power spots. We're looking at a pretty massive historical mystery here. Why did ancient civilizations continuously build their sacred monuments over the exact same geographic spots? We can actually trace this historical understanding of energy and the law of similarities back thousands and thousands of years. Look at this timeline. 5000 BC, Ati the Iceman is treated with tattoos resembling specific energy lines. Jump to 3000 BC and you've got advanced ancient Egyptian medicine using this law of similarities. Then in the 4th century BC, Pythagoras is studying universal harmonics in Egyptian temples. And by 1537 AD, Paracelsus publishes on the doctrine of signatures for healing. Basically the idea that a plant's physical shape indicates exactly what organ it can heal. It's a continuous thread. The crucial takeaway here is that these ancient sacred power spots, where monuments were built layer upon layer for millennia, weren't just picked at random. Dr. Karim's research shows they were actually multidimensional portals. And get this, they were fueled by fresh underground rock water crossing at very specific angles deep within the earth, creating these incredible, life-giving energy vortices. So how did early humans find them? Well, they observed nature. They followed animals and birds. They noticed that birds flying in V formations would actually break formation and circle over these specific areas before moving on. They also realized that milk and meat left in these areas wouldn't rot. Naturally, these incredibly energized geographic locations became the hubs for human healing, for burials, and for spiritual connection. Now let's transition to section 3, the science of biogeometry. Let's see how Dr. Karim translated all this ancient sacred phenomena into an actual modern framework called the physics of quality. At the absolute core of this entire paradigm is something called BG3, or biogeometry 3. What is it? It's this specific, harmonizing, subtle energy quality. Dr. Karim proposes that this balancing energy is the underlying fuel for the natural forming process in the universe. It's the exact same harmonizing energy found at the center of those ancient sacred power spots. And remarkably, it's found right at the geometric center of literally all shapes in nature. Now, as an architect and engineer, Dr. Karim didn't just want to rely on psychic measurements. He wanted an objective physics of quality. So he broke this BG3 down into 3 measurable subtle energy components. Component 1 is a specific wavelength matching a higher harmonic of ultraviolet. Component 2 is a higher harmonic of gold. And component 3 is something known in energy dowsing as negative green, which acts as a carrier quality. Together, these specific frequencies form the measurable foundation of biogeometry.
I love this quote because it so brilliantly illustrates the concept of resonance. Dr. Karim says, if you have a musical instrument and you hit any string, resonance will happen. Resonance means exchange of information, exchange of qualities. Think about it. Just like tuning a guitar, the buoy suggests everything in the universe exchanges information through similar vibrational qualities. If you strike a C string on a piano, another C string vibrates. Dr. Karim argues that shapes, colors, and sounds can all resonate with each other if they share those same underlying qualities. And here is where it gets super interesting. Because our subconscious mind exists beyond linear time and space, Dr. Karim argues that it doesn't primarily communicate through linear quantities, like words or numbers. Instead, it communicates through the multidimensional quality of shape. This essentially means the geometry we surround ourselves with on a daily basis is constantly talking to our deep biology. So, if shape is truly the language of our biology, how do we use it to heal? That brings us to Section 4, Shapes that Heal, focusing on biosignatures. Biogeometry signatures, or biosignatures, are precise two-dimensional linear diagrams. You can kind of think of them like computer chips. They are precisely drawn paths designed specifically to interact and resonate with the dynamic, three-dimensional energy flow patterns of our internal body organs. Let's walk through how this actually works in practice. Step 1. A specific shape acts as an open-ended linear pattern in your energy field, maybe something you wear as a pendant. Step 2. The subtle energy of your environment flows right through this shape. And finally, Step 3. Because of that law of similarities we discussed earlier, resonance connects the shape's energy directly to the corresponding body organ, harmonizing its function. Now, Dr. Karim positions this strictly as energetic support, not an alternative to medicine, but the results from the source material are absolutely staggering. In an Egyptian national hepatitis C study, 300 test subjects wore these specific biosignature pendants. The result? They helped reduce elevated liver enzymes back to normal levels in 90% of the subjects. 90%. That is a profound demonstration of the potential power shape has on our biological function. Let's look at what happens when these abstract concepts are applied to a massive, modern environmental crisis. Welcome to Section 5, The Miracle of Hamburg. So there's this Swiss village called Hamburg, and it was absolutely plagued by heavy electrosmog from newly installed mobile communication towers. Residents were sick, animals were sick. It was a real crisis. But instead of tearing the cell towers down, Dr. Karim placed biogeometry emitters pointing directly at the antennas. The absolute genius here? He used the very radiation causing the problem to act as a carrier wave. He piggybacked that healing BG3 energy directly into every single home in the valley. 60%. That is a massive number. It represents a 60% reduction in health symptoms among the residents of Hamburg after the biogeometry solutions were put in place. And this wasn't just some casual local survey either. This was assessed and formally confirmed by doctors from the Swiss parliament. Let's break this down to see exactly why the media started calling it the miracle of Hamburg. Harmonizing the energy didn't just affect human health through some placebo effect. Before biogeometry, the local livestock, like the cows, were sick, infertile, with low milk production. After, fertile again, with milk production increased. Before, migrating birds and wild animals had literally fled the electromagnetic radiation. After, they returned to the forest. It literally restored the life force of the entire ecosystem. Which brings us to this incredibly stark ultimatum from Dr. Karim himself. He says, you bring life force into modern technology, or modern technology will destroy our civilization. Wow. It is a super powerful warning, right? He's insisting that integrating this holistic, harmonizing energy of the Earth into our digital and physical infrastructure is the absolute only sustainable way forward. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are we ready to let the Earth speak again? Seriously. Are we willing to look past our modern scientific ego, acknowledge this invisible environmental stress we are creating, and finally tune back into the ancient resonant language of nature? It's a massive, paradigm-shifting question, but biogeometry suggests it's one we need to answer sooner rather than later. Thanks for hanging out with us for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.